Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday morning. Welcome to the program. How's your Sunday morning going so far? Mine's okay. I'm the only one up. Well, no, there's people awake, but I'm the only one up and around. Got my coffee. You have your coffee. And sun is shining outside. And it's a little cool down here. But other than that, we're okay. It was warm yesterday. That was nice weather. Did some lawn work, etc., etc., etc. So just breaking the ice this morning for everybody that's just waking up or just coming on in, getting your coffee. Welcome. Now, this show, for those of you who aren't aware, it's just informal. It's Sunday morning informal talk. It's not like our formal Monday, Wednesday, Friday intrepid radio program. We just informal. You guys can call in. You can do your thing. We'll talk about just whatever we want to talk about on Sunday morning. So I'm going to paste a link in the chat room. If you wanted to call into the show, it would appear down below my window here, and I'll see you when you come in. And if I don't see you right away, it's because I've gotten myself involved in talking about something. But I wanted to look at a little bit at news this morning, headlines, current events, things of that nature, and see what's going on in the world around us today. Let's see what some of the breaking news is. Let's see. The BLM movement. How about this? The BLM founder accuses or she loses the swatting lawsuit against the LAPD, and Melinda Abdullah claimed police tried to intimidate her by responding to her California home. And Black Lives Matter co-founder Melinda Abdullah lost a lawsuit. And I got to get rid of some things that are popping up on me here, against the Los Angeles Police Department. She lost this lawsuit on Thursday, with a jury finding that police acted appropriately in a call to her residence. And Abdullah, in 2020, sued the LAPD after officers responded to her home in an alleged swatting incident. Swatting is the practice of calling in a fake police emergency to a person's residence, sometimes resulting in violence. And Abdullah argued that the police had known the swatting call was a hoax, but responded to her home anyway in an attempt to intimidate her due to her anti-police advocacy. And the police argued they acted appropriately, saying a caller had claimed he had taken 3 hostages, etc., etc., etc. Well, she lost her case suing the LAPD. And there's a lot about Abdullah. You notice where a lot of the funds from Black Lives Matter ended up in her and others at the top of the organization buying multi-million-dollar homes. So I say that's poetic justice, even though I don't know much about the whole case. It's poetic to me that would happen. Did you know Trump spoke at a libertarian meeting last night? Meeting is probably not the best way to put it. Let's see. I know they're calling this quite a bold move, but he was booed at the Libertarian Convention. CNN makes a big headline out of that when he asked the attendees to nominate me or at least vote for me. And he got boos from the audience. And remember, these are libertarians. But former President Donald Trump was loudly and consistently booed throughout his speech on Saturday at the Libertarian Party's national convention, particularly when he asked attendees to nominate me or at least vote for me. And the heckling began the moment the former president took the stage and some of his supporters in the room trying to drown out the boos with chants of "We want Trump." Now I think you should nominate me or at least vote for me, and we should win together, Trump said, because the libertarians want to vote for me, and it's very important because we've got to get rid of the worst president in history. And Trump added, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years. And in 2016, Libertarian President nominee Gary Johnson earned more than 3% of the popular vote, a high point in the party's history. And Trump left the stage after 34 minutes, marking one of his shortest campaign speeches to date. And the Libertarian Party is expected to select its presidential nominee on Sunday. And Trump's stop at the Libertarian Convention marked an unconventional one for a presumptive Republican nominee, but it's illustrative of his campaign's intensifying concern over third-party candidates. The outreach to libertarians follows weeks of stepped-up attacks by Trump aimed at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose high-profile independent White House bid is increasingly viewed by the former president's advisors as a potential problem in an election expected to be decided by a very narrow margin in a handful of states. So what do you think of that? What do you think of Trump going to the Libertarian Convention, which wasn't very big? I'm trying to see if they show the number of people at the crowd, but here's some Trump doing something that candidates don't do. He went to the Libertarian Convention. So at a news conference immediately following Trump's speech, Chase Oliver, a Libertarian presidential candidate, said that he believed it was a mistake to invite Trump, but that he was proud that libertarians heckled the former president during his remarks. I don't like having a war criminal on this stage. I don't feel he deserves a spot on this stage, Oliver said. A war criminal? As Trump, I don't know if I'd heard that Trump been accused of war crimes. While I think it was a mistake to have invited Donald Trump, I'm glad he got to see a glimpse of what a real libertarian reception feels like. Oh, such a nice person. Politics, such a wonderful thing. Let's say I lost my place because an ad popped up. Michael Rechtenwald, another libertarian presidential candidate, said he believed the party achieved some gains by inviting Trump to the convention, pointing to the former president's commitment to commute Ulbricht's sentence. We got a major political party candidate to say that he would free Ross Ulbricht, Rechtenwald said at the news conference. We moved the needle toward liberty. Still, Rechtenwald acknowledged that Trump's remarks were unlikely to persuade libertarians to vote for the former president. I know libertarians, all of you out there, you get stuck on voting for your liberty, but never, ever, ever, ever has the Libertarian Party gotten more than 3% of the vote. When they say the last time Gary Johnson got more than 3% of the vote in the last election, he got 3 point something of the vote. So there's no people in this room in the Libertarian Party at risk for falling for Trump's bullshit, said Rechtenwald. Unlikely to persuade libertarians to vote for him. Trent Nessel, a libertarian delegate from Tennessee, told CNN that Trump's pledge to commute Ulbricht's sentence wouldn't be enough to convince him to back the former president. I want to see it happen, Nessel said. It won't change my vote in November. So those pesky libertarians, I've at times I've identified with libertarians, but not always, because to me they're I understand libertarians. I understand their ideology, but I also understand that the Libertarian Party, at the rate they're going, will never, ever achieve the office. So what do they have to do? So, hey, good morning, everybody, by the way. I haven't said good morning to anybody yet. Susie Q, you were an early timer this morning. Good to see you. Morgan Snow, good to see you this morning. And who else we got in here? Rendell Flagg is here. And Steph Cuervo Queen. You mean libtards are booing, said Steph Cuervo Queen. Let them vote for Kennedy, she says. Pearl Jones, Trumpy Bumpy is destroying the Matrix. Yes, he is, Pearl Jones. He is destroying the Matrix. And Steph Cuervo Queen, hey, Suze. Oh, okay. Let's see. He's fine to do it, and Trump will be on Timcast tomorrow night. All right. I like Timcast, by the way. Josh Kemp, you're here. Good morning this morning. Pearl Jones Delaney says, I think I'll do a Zodiac list for all the presidents. Trump is a Gemini dog. There you go. So, Trump at the Libertarian Party last night. 34-minute speech. Got a lot of boos. Boos, B-O-O-S, not B-O-O-Z-E. So, I think that's interesting that he went out there and did that. Good on Trump. Let's see. What else we got here in the news? Is there a cheaper way to own a home? Real estate experts reveal their secrets. What do you think about that home stuff nowadays? We've got some people who listen to this show who frequent this chat room that talk about the stock market is up in our economy, and the not just the stock market, but their home value just increased. It doubled in the last 2 months. Doubled. And I say, wow, that's fantastic. So the stock market is up. What does that mean does the stock market really affect grocery store prices? Rainey said to me last night, she said, now it's been a little lean around here as far as project work coming in. For me, my client work, I've got clients that haven't paid, which is hurtful to us over here. And some clients I've known for a very long time that are good friends have not paid. And their work is done. And others that keep you dangling. And you try to understand and be understanding. So we got that. But Rainey said, wow, we're tight right now. And we are. Our budget's tight. Everybody's budget is tight. And, we all go through those roller coaster things. But how many of you feel like things are getting less expensive for you? They say jobs are up. And people are making money. But the extra money people are making, what are they saying right now? The average middle American family. Now, get the picture of what a middle American is and the kind of money that a middle American family makes is right now needs to spend. There's a gap between what jobs are paying and the price of goods and services. That's gas, that's food, that's all of these things. On average, there's an $11,000 annual gap for those people. That means most middle Americans are coming up around $11,000 short of where they should be. And that's making people dig a lot deeper. People are taking multiple jobs, Josh Kemp says, yeah. And Rainey's got a job up here at the... she does her own stuff, her tumblers and her business, but she's also got a job up at the little Dollar General up here. And she only goes in 3 days a week, but she had been 5 days a week and very depended on. And they call her an awful lot. She's very organized about what she does, meticulous. Everybody likes her. She knows what she's doing. She did not take a managerial position, which they offered her, assistant manager and managerial. And she said, no, I want to have my evenings open and my weekends for my kids. And so she cut it back to 3 days a week because summer's coming. And now she's been fighting to get the raise that she deserves because there's been people around her getting hired, new hires, making more money than she's making, doing technically the same thing. And so she's talked to the manager who is, really likes her a lot. They've got a great rapport. The regional who has to approve, she's been waiting almost 2 months now for her raise to kick in. And she told the manager, if I don't get my raise, don't put me on the schedule next time. That was 2 weeks ago. Now she's not on the schedule this week. So she's been cut from the schedule, but not let go. The manager, I think, is afraid of talking to the regional and bringing it. It's like, dude, bring it up. She said she was going to do it. That's where I wish I could step in. I'd love to call these people on the phone and go, hey, look, you're being lackadaisical about this decision, not getting it done. That doesn't just affect your shop. It affects my family. So, and it doesn't, it's not a lot of money, but it's, these are the kinds of things that, most middle Americans are going through this kind of thing. And hey, Scott Allen, good to see you. Steph says, I look around here in the stores and they're putting in self-checkout registers. Like, oh my fucking God, she says. Yeah. So self-checkout. So they don't have to pay anybody to do it. Randall Flagg says, I find it funny that punk bands like Dropkick Murphys hate Trump. Punk was anti-establishment, not Democrat shills. Yeah, that's interesting to me too. I think it's they go along with what they think the crowd wants to hear. Many times. I think that's what you're seeing. So, Kalina, good to see you this morning. Welcome to the chat room. Steph says more than 11K. Yeah. And you know what? We're feeling it around here. It's tight. Sometimes there's a little bit of money and you set that aside and you play with it and you get stuff for the kids and you do some things and you get some of the little things you need to do. But you know what? It's not good. The economy is not good. The economy is not improving. So, punk bands ain't punk bands no more. That's right. They're all old too. They're all as old as me, if not older. Some of those punk band musicians. So, I've never been a big punk band follower. So, Kalina says, I agree. Ours is 25 grand. Didn't help when hubby lost his job over a year ago, followed by cancer diagnosis. Yeah. And, we have things that have kept us afloat when it's been lean on jobs, things that we got a pretty good chunk in for old fees that were taken out by the state of Wisconsin, saying that I was missing my taxes and things like that. And they took money from us. They put liens on us. And I finally got that all wrangled. I got somebody. We didn't have to go to court. It was this shy of court. But then we got that chunk back in. So that helped. Things like that. And it looks a little invisible when you've got stuff that's coming in and you go, but wait a minute. I haven't taken on a new big project for a while. I need a good book illustration project or a few book cover designs or things like that. So Rainey's really pushing me on the tattooing thing again. Really got to get that going. She got me some new stuff that I have to work on, and so and she's looking into trying to have me go to some schooling to do cosmetic tattooing. And I'm like, well, wait, I'm not even at the regular tattooing yet, but we're getting there. Johnny Rotten gets it, says Randall Flagg. There you go. So it's tough all over, and it's not getting any better. I don't know why people think it is. I don't know why people would vote for the current administration to stay in office. Do those people think that that is going to get them somewhere, that this is going to improve under the current administration? I don't think it is. It's going to, if they won again, it would empower them certainly to continue doing what they're doing. So, Rage Against the Machine got vaxxed, says Scott Allen. Ain't that the truth? So what's everybody got on your mind? I can keep going with current events and go through and look at what's going on out there. What is this? Disney World plunges into crisis mode. A Florida woman at Disney Park knocked unconscious on a 5-story water slide, the lawsuit alleges. So there's a woman that's suing Disney parks. Now, I don't have a problem with Disney. I've always liked Disney. Disney was a part of my family, my older kids growing up. They're big Disney fans. I don't like the politics when Disney starts pushing political points of view through their theme parks and their movies. And we have seen the failure of Disney movies. Disney movies fail due to woke agendas. Do you hear about some of this? And the reason for Disney's decline, it's gone woke. And it's to an almost comical degree. Last year, 2023, the company admitted to investors that there was a growing misalignment between Disney's output and public and consumer tastes and the preference for entertainment. And Disney is a $1 billion casualty of woke. The entertainment giant is paying a heavy price for trying to shove identity politics down the throats of kids and families. And now, like I say, I'm going to backtrack on that one more time and say, I've always liked Disney. Disney was a big part of my kids growing up, big part of me growing up. My kids were Disney kids. My mermaid tail making daughters, they're Disney oriented in their 30s and still. And I remember standing with my twin daughters, and our whole family was there, but it meant a lot to my twin daughters and me. One of the closing gate ceremonies, closing the park ceremonies for the night. They have the big fireworks show, but they do a multimedia show projected on the castle. And I mean, and the sound systems are unbelievable. You've been to big shows where the outdoor amps and all that are playing in the speakers, and it distorts this perfect loud sound for outdoors. The lighting was amazing. The projection was amazing. And they were going through this whole montage of Disney songs from old movies to the movies that are newer to the movies my older kids grew up on, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, all of those types of things. And it was, I mean, I sat practically with my jaw dropped through the whole thing. One of my older daughters on either arm, and we were just watching it, just transfixed. And it was very emotional, and it was because of the place that Disney had played in their upbringing, and just as an entertainment thing, and toys and clothes and books, and then what my daughters got into. Yeah, Steph says, I'm with you, Scotty, but look at the total turnaround in the years since all of our kids have grown up. That's exactly it, is that now things have completely changed. It's not the same Disney my kids grew up with. And Disney right now is paying a heavy price for trying to be the most woke entertainment entity on the planet. And the Walt Disney Company is in deep trouble. To its last 4 high-profile releases bombed at the box office, losing over $1 billion between the 4 of them. And once Hollywood's most successful film studio, Disney was dethroned last year by Universal Pictures. And the reason for Disney's decline? It has gone woke to an almost comical degree. Last year, the company admitted to investors that there was a growing misalignment between Disney's output and public and consumer tastes and preferences for entertainment. Consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, it said, are risking the company's reputation and profits. This is a very good picture of what happens when all you do is cater to a political mindset, or you cater to one particular mindset, the woke mindset, thinking that's going to be the key to your advancement. I don't think Disney. Okay, let me make this statement, because I think a lot of companies are like this. Disney, along with a lot of companies, probably does not give a rat's ass about wokeism. Maybe there are people who push that agenda within the company, but I think they care about what makes the company money. And there is nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you're going to have a company and you're not focused on how to make your company grow and make it produce profits, then you shouldn't be in business. So that's what Disney's doing. Kalina says, yet Disney doesn't realize this. They think to balance things out by raising prices on everything. Exactly. That's why you see, for those of you who go to fast food, we do fast food around here. We do Culver's every now and then. We do Taco Bell once in a while. We do once a week. I take a kid's got an appointment, and we go out to lunch. We grab something for Rainy, and that kind of stuff. But you've seen like McDonald's burgers. There was a chart, and I could look it up and we could go by it. But just going out for fast food with your kid is going to cost you. I went out, I took my daughter to Culver's the other day after an appointment she had, and we got Culver's burgers. We got burgers, fries, drinks. 2 people. Cost us almost $30. $27 and some odd cents. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you flipping kidding me? And we've talked about that before, the price of things. But you compare the prices of McDonald's 2 years ago to what they are now, that is an indicator. And who eats at McDonald's? It's not your elite who are your stock market people. Some of them do. I know Donald Trump likes McDonald's. But this is what's going on. Viewing figures, back to Disney, viewing figures in box office sales spell this out very clearly. Audiences are growing sick of the woke slop that Disney's been serving them. They're tired with scripts that are weighed down by clunky political messaging. And they're fed up with storylines being mangled to fit progressive narratives. They're irked by Disney's desire to lecture them instead of entertain them. Does that bother you? I know it bothers me. I'll look at movies and there's times I go, I do not need to be lectured about being woke by this movie, show, cartoon, whatever, and I'll turn it off. So even Disney franchises that were once guaranteed moneymakers have really struggled to excite their audiences of late. The Marvel Studios, which is owned by Disney, used to regularly break box office records with its billion-dollar superhero films. As recently as 2019, The Avengers Endgame became the second highest grossing movie of all time. Did you know that? But last year, Marvel registered its worst ever year at the box office. Its biggest flop last year was The Marvels, which failed to even break even. And one reason it probably did so badly was that it features none of the characters that audiences are most familiar with. Instead of beloved, well-established heroes like Captain America or Iron Man, The Marvels focused on an ensemble of mainly diverse newcomers. So we follow the adventures of Miss Marvel, a Muslim teen superhero from the Miss Marvel TV series, Monica Rambeau, a black female side character from the WandaVision miniseries, and practically, and not that there's anything wrong with that. It's got its place, but when they're foisting this on people, as it's like watching things where wokeism is slipped in just to try to, I'm trying to think of what I just saw that I got nothing, absolutely nothing. Disclaimer, nothing against black actors, nothing at all. And I think that where I have a problem with it is when black actors are inserted into parts that were originally white characters for the sake of wokeism, not for the sake of furthering the story along. It's for the sake of being woke. Nick Fury, played by none other than Samuel L. Jackson. Nick Fury was a white guy for 50 years in the comic books, and he suddenly became a black guy for the movies. What was some of the Little Mermaid? They put in a black young woman to play Ariel, the Little Mermaid. Now, who cares? It's a mermaid. Mermaids aren't humans, so they're fantasy characters. I had expressed a long time ago when that happened, 3-4 years ago, when they were talking about making that movie. I said, I got a problem with this only because it breaks from what the original is. Well, should I care that it's a black person? Is it because I'm white supremacist or I'm racist? No. It's that I didn't like messing with the creativity that way. And so I spoke out about it. It just not like national forum or anything like that. Just, my daughters had put something up about the new movie because that's what they do, and with their business. And I said creatively, I'm cringing a little bit. I said, I'm sure this young lady is wonderful and has an amazing voice and will look amazing with the CGI or AI graphics to create the mermaid tail this time around. And I said, yeah, they're taking a cartoon to live action. But I understand where Disney is are they trying to be inclusive of all the races and so on? That's fine. But I said, I personally don't like the changing of the character. Well, where does it say that Ariel has to be redheaded and white-skinned? It doesn't. It's just, if you're going to, as a creative director, I probably would have cast her as what she'd been in the cartoon if we're recreating the cartoon. So maybe there's a fine line there that I'm crossing. Maybe I'm blind to something. Should I be? Tell me in the chat room. Should I have not been bothered by that? I was only not bothered, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do now about Disney. No, it was, I think that's a dumb thing to do. I thought creatively, I wouldn't have tampered with that, especially when you know that they were doing it to promote wokeness. Now, wokeness is also a philosophy. It's not just the color of somebody's skin. Let's see. I'm looking at some of your, let's see. I got disappointed at the hotel restaurant, says Randall Flagg. Took the bus to the park where they gave me free ice cream. Let's see. Disney doesn't realize this, said Kalina. They think to balance things out by raising prices on everything. Yeah. We'd spend, for my family of 5, we'd spend $90 to $100 every morning just getting breakfast. And that's not a big sit-down breakfast. That was cafeteria style, deli style, where you would walk with your tray and you'd say, I'll take one of those and one of those. And we'd end up paying $100 for breakfast. And let's see, hurts the poor the most. Yeah, it does, Randall. You don't see a lot of poor people going to Disney. When my daughter was 3, we had a private meeting with the princess, and she saw Aurora, hugged her, and Mommy, she's real. I cried as my heart melted because she was so happy. Yeah, there's those happy moments are just amazing. Calimus reminds you of the movie Demolition Man, where people dressed to the nines to go to Taco Bell. Yeah. Education through entertainment. That's right, Susie Q. That's what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment educating. My son, we had to sign a permission slip this last week for my 14-year-old son in the 7th grade to be able to watch the movie Glory about the Civil War. Do you remember that one? Matthew Broderick, white captain of a regiment, the 1st Negro Regiment, something like that. And who else was in that? Denzel Washington was in that as a slave turned soldier. And it's rated R, so we had to sign a permission slip for it. It's a fantastic movie. You can learn some amazing things in the movies. What are some of these other ones in here? Marvel peaked with Endgame, says Randall Flagg. Never going to top that saga. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. But now I would cringe, says Steph in the chat room, and I wouldn't let my child hug a princess because I would question, is she? Is she really a princess? Is she? F Disney for bringing me to that place. Yeah, well, that's it, you know. Disney has brought us to places we don't want to go. It was such a great experience when they were small. Yeah, exactly. My question is, why can't they come up with their own original ideas to make the ethnic characters strong instead of trying to erase and change the characters we already have? That's like Black Panther. Wasn't that an incredible movie? Didn't they make 2 of those, if I'm not mistaken? And didn't that movie do very, very well at the box office? It's a black character. I agree with that. I don't like one of the things that when I first noticed this, it was a long time ago when this movie came out. When did the Wild Wild West come out with Will Smith? Will Smith, Wild Wild West. What year did that come out? That came out in 1999. The Wild Wild West. And that movie, it had Kenneth Branagh in it, and it had Kevin Kline in it playing Artemis Gordon. But James West of the Wild Wild West was one of my TV heroes as a kid. Same era as Star Trek, the original series when that came out. Wild Wild West played by Robert Conrad, quintessential tough guy. But cool and charming, you know, and all of that. He played James West, the government agent in the Wild Wild West. And who do they cast as James West in the new movie of the film of the series in 1999? Will Smith, a black character. I thought, I'll still go watch this, but it bothers me. Why are they changing James West into a man of color? He was a white guy. It's because it's a reimagining. Okay, it's a reimagining. I get that. Yeah, Professor Bauer, I got to ask the same thing. What happened to Kids Eat Free? Yeah, I don't think that exists anywhere anymore. Susie Q says, leave things alone. Enough with the woke remakes. Keep art as it was created. Make new stories. I know they're doing this new Moana, live action Moana, with The Rock, who voiced the demigod Maui in the animated film, playing Maui in the film. And I don't know anything about it yet, just that it's being made, and I've seen a couple of introductory pictures. But I've heard they put the release date of that off because they want to make the second animated Moana first and release that first. So my kids just told me that yesterday. I didn't even know that. So that'll be interesting. But let's go back to this. I'm getting far afield. Practically all new Disney films place this huge emphasis on this kind of diversity casting. Carrie Burke, president of Disney's General Entertainment Content Division, said in a leaked video in 2022 that she wants 50% of all Disney characters to be either LGBT or from an ethnic minority background. Why do half the characters must be from the LGBT community or from ethnic minority background? Have you noticed the ubiquitous presence of in every series? My wife watches a couple of these shows with the kids that they like 911 and the Chicago Fire and Chicago Police. I don't think they watch Chicago Police as much, or Chicago LPD or whatever, or Chicago Police Department. But Chicago Fire they watch, and 911. And I sit down and I watch with them, and every show they watch. And there was something new they watched the other day, some new series, some spooky series or mini series that was on for TV that had the ever-present gay friend of the main character, who's a female, who the gay character has his gay lover, and they're always joking and quipping, and that's ever present in every single series. Every series has become all the main characters. Half of the main characters have to be gay. The firefighters, I didn't know there were so many gay firefighters out there until I sat down and watched this couple of episodes of this series with my wife and kid. And it's like, who cares? There's a part of it that says, who cares? And there's the other part that says, what are they trying to foist on us from Hollywood? That this is the norm? Because I don't think it is the norm. It's interesting. I don't know what any of you might be saying about this because I'm looking at this article. But let's go on with this. So they want 50% of all Disney characters to be either LGBTQ or from an ethnic minority background. And so Disney Television Animation executive producer Latoya Ravenel has similarly said she's adding queerness wherever she can to the shows she oversees on Disney. And no one is against diverse characters. Like any other character, they just need to be compelling and have depth. But all too often, their inclusion in Disney productions feels more like a tick box exercise to meet Carrie Burke's quota. Oh, there's the ubiquitous, there's the tick that box, there's the gay couple, there's the high school gay kid, there's the this and that, and there's the black James West, although I don't think Disney made that movie. I'm not positive of that, though. So it's as if these diverse characters, meanwhile, they often come at the cost of other more familiar faces. And these diverse characters are only on screen to send a message, to remind the public that diversity is our strength, rather than drive the plot forward or engage the audience. What's the purpose of the movies? What's the purpose of entertainment? It's to entertain people, right? Often these characters are also actively grating. Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, is supposed to be the main draw of The Marvels, that recent movie. She even starred in her own film, Captain Marvel, back in 2019. But like so many female protagonists these days, she's stereotypically girl boss. And she comes across as smug, condescending. She beats enemies with ease and brags about her powers. Perhaps Disney's most egregious use of the girl boss trope was in She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Let me take a sip of coffee. Just think of that title, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. You don't want to see me cross. You don't want to see me cross-examine when I'm angry. Attorney at law. Okay. She-Hulk. This Disney series follows a Hulk-type character, except, as the title suggests, she's a woman and a lawyer. She's a strong female character who delivers lectures about why catcalling is bad. And do you even know what catcalling is anymore? Ooh, chicka chicka, you got some fries to go with that shake? So to the surprise of precisely no one, She-Hulk went down like a cup of cold, sick, with many Marvel diehards. And so it seemed that the public aren't particularly interested in watching these unfamiliar characters talking down to them for 100 plus minutes. Nor are they going to invest hours of their precious time in the endless TV spin-offs on Disney Plus, if they suspect that these series are just lectures in disguise. This is something that came up with some of the new Star Trek series. Oh boy, I'm all set for Strange New Worlds, but is it going to be a woke series? Are they going to waste my time trying to teach me woke stuff? Well, thanks, JP, for that historical note. Way back, they weren't the first. There were others, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. Thank you. Thank you. You can come on. We can talk about that. Talking about the movie Glory. Let's see. Robert Conrad. Yeah, Susie Q. He was smooth. Steph says, I would have rather Denzel Washington because Will Smith doesn't have the manpower to be a tough cowboy bad boy. Comedian movie part with Martin Lawrence, yes, but not as a badass cowboy. There you go. Denzel doesn't do comedy. That says JP, which is what the new Wild Wild West was. Now, the series in the 60s wasn't a comedy. It's your typical 1960s action-adventure series. And the new Wild Wild West was more like a comedy. So is Moana going to be played by Dylan Mulvaney? They should. They should do that. I think Disney should do a new biopic with who's a very good white actor? Dana Carvey, comedian, white comedian, playing Martin Luther King Jr. Dana Carvey is Martin Luther King Jr. They should. Isn't that diversity? Let's see. Yeah, and why not Dylan Mulvaney? Why couldn't you know why? Because nobody would go see it. So Disney will only take their own philosophy so far. And it's not, is it Disney in general, or is it the people that've got in charge of these certain branches of Disney entertainment? If you look at who's Professor Bauer says, if you look at who's behind all the diversification, equity, and inclusion, it's all affluent white female liberals. The awfuls, for short. That's what they call them. And Steph says, I have friends that are gay and family that are gay. They don't agree with all that bullshit that's going on with the kids. They're just let us live our lives. Even for as progressively leftist stupid that George Takei is. George Takei played the original Sulu in the Star Trek series and in the movies. I was one of those waiting to see if they were going to do a Captain Sulu movie because I thought the character had some meat behind it. No pun intended. And he's gay. And when they came out and they made in the new Star Trek movies under J.J. Abrams, with Chris Pike as Kirk and Zach Quinto as Spock, and I don't remember who played Sulu by name, but they made his character gay in the movie. As not a big gay thing. They weren't like screaming that he's gay, but they showed things, he's gay. And even the original Sulu, George Takei said, I don't think that's necessary to do. He said, I appreciate the homage. He says, but the character is a character. And I appreciated what he said about this. He said the character is a character. He wasn't written as gay. Changing him to gay, I think, is a little too gratuitous. I think he used that word. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. But that was the intent of what he was saying. So, and yeah, Steph brings up a good point, and this is why I say they're trying to normalize pedophilia. Disney's overstepped their bounds. They think that they're bigger than what they are. This is why DeSantis, governor of Florida, pulled back so many reins on Disney. He said, if you want to be pushing politics, he says, we'll take away your tax-free status. Why do churches have tax-free status, whether you agree with it or not? Because they're not there to be pushing politics. They're there to express morality, religion. So I get that. I'm all for that for a church that stays within its bounds. But if a church becomes a political branch, pushing politics, even the religious right, trying to push for the marriage. I remember the DOMA Act, the Defense of Marriage Act, that several years ago, and I was against it. No, the church doesn't have a place doing that. Church, stay the church. You start trying to be like the government and legislate, you should lose your tax-free status. And so the Federation, Russ says the She-Hulk was a fun show. Sorry, I'm just catching that, Russ. You said that about 8 minutes ago. Maybe it was. I think my wife watched it once and said she thought it was a fun show. But the political messaging wasn't. You know what I think these things do? They bury political messaging in comedy or semi-decent writing until you realize they're trying to persuade you by stealth of something else. There he is. There's the man.
Hello.
I'm going to jump back into this article for a second, then I'm going to get your take on some things. Listen to this. Disney's Pixar, the studio behind some of the biggest animated hits of the modern era, and I love Pixar, is not Toy Story you can think of as Pixar, Monsters, Inc., all of those. It's now awash with identity politics, too. Even when its output isn't excessively preachy, it still seems to trumpet diversity at the expense of good storytelling. Take its 2023 movie, Elemental, the worst performing release in Pixar's history. It tells the story of a fire character and a water character falling in love. I remember seeing clips of this. My kids were watching it, and I thought, oh, that looks intriguing, and it's Pixar. Cool. And the film is inoffensive enough, even if its subtext about overcoming racism is not all that subtle. What executives were most proud of, however, was the fact that Elemental contained Disney's first non-binary character, a lake who wears earrings, goes by they and them as pronouns, and is voiced by a non-binary actor. Now, the character called Lake Ripple is such a small part of the film that they doesn't even appear in the end credits. But they were still everywhere in the film's marketing and media campaign. Studio executives seem to imagine that the public is constantly clamoring for yet more diversity firsts, or perhaps they're shamelessly using them to generate more publicity. Either way, it clearly isn't a winning strategy. And Disney's preoccupation with diversity can often feel like an attempt to distract from its otherwise pedestrian output. Its 2023 live-action remake, The Little Mermaid, in which Black actress Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel, is another case in point. Although some might have seen this blockbuster remake as a sad day for the redhead representation. Yeah, what happened to redheads? Rise up, redheads! Redheads have been replaced by a black person. I think that's discrimination. But most members of the public were distinctly unbothered by the prospect of a black Ariel. Well, once again, few people are opposed to diverse casting in and of itself. I wasn't opposed to it in and of itself. I was opposed to it creatively. Predictably, there were some tedious woke additions to the remake, including new lyrics in Kiss the Girl. Sha-na-na-na-na-na. My oh my, look like the boy too shy, ain't gonna kiss the girl. Sha-la-la-la-la-la, ain't that sad? What a shame. Too bad he gonna miss the girl. Why do you think I know those lyrics? Because my daughters watched that movie every day for 5 years, and I heard it. But the film's main problem was that it was boring and uninspired. And although Disney was hailed in the media for its inspirational choice of casting, that's like saying, oh God, what's his name? It was going to be a quick quip, come off the top of my head. Transgender, Wheaties, swimmer, Cardassians. What the hell's his name?
Brenner?
Yeah, Jenner.
You're Jenner. Jenner.
Like
he
Jenner,
was a runner, not a swimmer.
Fine, you runner. Yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking of the other guy who was also gay. Spitz, I think. It was the other guy. But Jenner, you think of that and you think, what did they say about was such a courageous choice? Well, okay, it's courageous.
Well, what the funny thing with Jenner is that, and I'll be respectful here. She it was actually very conservative in views.
Yes,
was going to run as a Republican candidate for
I like
Governor California
views.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things when you see the media and big production companies doing the woke thing. As much as George Takei ruffles my feathers with the bombasticness of his statements or his public relations person posting, whatever, whoever posts on Facebook for him.
Yeah. I'm sure it's his PR guy.
Yeah. Going back to your earlier statement that he made about Sulu and being rewritten in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek as a gay character, it was definitely a great homage to the original Sulu and paying respect to George Takei and all of that, which is great. But he himself, as you said in his quote, said that hey, this is kind of a bridge too far, and it wasn't necessary.
And he wasn't making a big harsh statement about it. He just said, "Well, thanks." He says, "But I don't think that's necessary."
Right, and I think one of the things that media could do, and then I'm going to follow this up with some other statements.
All right.
I think one of the biggest things that media could do in terms of the portrayal of diversity and things like that going into the sexual orientation, gender, different genders and gender fluidity and things like that is, don't be over the top with the characters about it. Be normal about it. There comes a point where you look at some of this stuff and it's like, dude, you're just playing into every last damn stereotype.
Right.
And in a way, that could actually be very disrespectful. Yeah. Because there are plenty of, homosexual individuals, transgender individuals, things like that, who operate on a very, even keel. They have very even keel, center of the road political views, sociological views. This particular area of, either their sexual orientation or their gender identity. It may be the only place where they really deviate from, what would be considered, a centrist outlook, and or at least a balanced outlook on things sociologically and societally and politically. Just be normal about it. You don't need to make it over the top. You don't need to make it flamboyant. I mean, if you look through history, the history of entertainment, film and TV, the gay character was always portrayed, as some sort of, ultra dandy.
Right. Right.
And that was playing into a stereotype, and it eventually became a trope, but just because that was how they normally did it.
Sure.
But it's like that kind of was also in a way insulting and made it easier to make them the comic relief or the butt of the joke or whatever. Yes. Just make it a normal dude or a normal dudette, as I like to say, and just have them have normal issues, normal interests, normal. If you want to normalize something, make them like everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just like, hey, this hard-boiled cop in this gritty noir-esque show just happens to have a boyfriend. And that's it. Like,
I
still make him,
a pretty amazing mini-series with my wife. And we just watched the last episode of that the other day on, I think it's called George and Mary. And it's about George, a young man who his mother is, nobility of some kind, but she pushes him to become the lover to King James the First of England, Ireland, Scotland. The
seen that pop up.
son. What's that?
Yeah, I've seen that pop up on was it Netflix or something?
It is really well done. The whole theme, though, if you don't like the whole theme of gay lovers and so on, which they didn't really call them that back then, if you don't like that theme, you're not going to enjoy this film, because it really focuses on how she brings her son to power to give herself power by him becoming the lover of James the First. Right. And of course, James the First makes him Lord Buckingham, and true character. Yeah. Characters. And the man who plays, I don't know the actor's name, who plays James the First. What a phenomenal job he does playing the Scottish monarch. Right. And I've seen him in other things. He always plays these very emotional roles, and I think maybe he's just very good at it. He recently played Van Gogh in something, but I've only seen a clip of it. Van Gogh, it showed him like a time travel, like he's in a museum. Somebody's talking about Van Gogh's works and what they thought of Van Gogh, and he brought tears to his eyes. And and then I've seen him in SEAL Team. I watched that show, which I loved that show. And he was a guy that was overtaken by PTSD and committed suicide, and but a very emotional role, right? But he played this character, and it was done. The production quality of this was so good, of this series. It was how they can recreate something that's taking place in the 1600s and make it look like you're really there. The lighting was always, it was wonderful. I look at the quality of the way something's made. The lighting wasn't like, oh, you can tell this looks like video or something. Right. The lighting of all the rooms, of the sky outside, the muted colors of clothing, and some of that is all editing. And but it was just an amazing. What does Steph say here? Okay, didn't see it, but was he gay or was he heterosexual? And she pushed him to be a gay lover. No, he was. He of course had a queen, and he had a child, which was Charles the First, which became the first English monarch ever to be beheaded. Charles the First, the son of James the First, and of course that was under Charles, the rise of Oliver Cromwell, the parliamentarians, and so on. But James the First, he's most noted for having produced the King James Bible, the 1611 King James Bible, which was kind of for him a political move in that he wanted it done because he was a believer, but at the same time, he needed that to counterbalance other things about his own personal life. And she pushed her son to be the gay lover. Yes, her son wasn't gay. She pushed him to be the lover of Charles of James the First. You're right, Steph. Yeah. So that was a pretty amazing miniseries. You should all look that up if you're into historical miniseries. There are things that happen where you go, oh, is that historically right?
There's always stuff like that with historical. They only have so much time to tell so much of the story, and they want to get so many things. I mean, I look at going to the historical genres and eras that I enjoy. Looking at Band of Brothers and things like that. Yes. There's a lot that they didn't get right in terms of sequence of events or positioning. Yes. Within an actual battle space, etc. And you can go to these places today and you can read the accounts and you can see, here's where, Captain Ronald Spears made his big run, literally through enemy lines over to another position and then ran back through it. And took over the elements of Easy Company that was assaulting this position, and there was a lieutenant who was a politician's son, and it was very much kind of implied in the series that I think it was Lieutenant Dyke. They very much implied that this guy is just here to get some frontline service kind of stuff, so it looks good for political career, later on, kinds of things like that. But even that impression isn't quite right, because up until that point, he'd actually done an okay job as a field commander. He was not entirely myopic to the ways of warfare and battle. He wasn't he wasn't necessarily how they implied, but they imply certain things to tell more of a story or to make something a little more interesting and kind of bring some level of poignancy later on. Yes. With the other characters that they want to focus on. And so, they do take liberties, and some of it is very frustrating, especially when they get it glaringly wrong.
Yes.
But, I don't know. It's interesting to see that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You look at going back to the sexuality topic. I was thinking about this as you were talking about Charles the First. And James the First, and all of that. That sort of thing is not unheard of in general in those days, and it became something that was less socially acceptable, if you will, later on as time progressed. Right. We had a president who a lot of scholars are like, we're pretty sure that this guy may have actually been gay. And it wasn't talking about Lincoln.
Yeah. I've heard this talk about Lincoln.
I'm trying to remember who it was. Can't remember if it was Buchanan or something like that. It was in the 1800s when he was president. But it was one of those things where, single.
Yes.
Never married or anything like it was the only president we had that was like that. I can't think of his name, and it's bugging the crap out of me that I can't remember.
Yeah. I can't think of who you're talking about either.
But they have all kinds of letters, and they have all kinds of.
Randall Flagg said Obama.
Jesus.
Maybe.
At the end of the day, though, here's my take on it. At the end of the day, who cares?
I don't care.
If that guy or gal in the future, right? Because I'm sure there will be a woman president. I'm confident of that.
Sure.
But
I got no problem with that.
Right. But that guy or gal as a political leader of a nation, and specifically speaking to ours, if that guy or gal can make policies that are good for the nation, can lead in an appropriate way, knows when to put warheads on foreheads and when not to, like all of those things, who cares?
I don't care.
Right?
As long as she's qualified. As long as he's qualified. Why am I against Biden? It's not because Biden. I'm against Biden because I don't think Biden is qualified.
There's a bunch of stuff there that
there's so much more to that. By the way, here's a picture of a production still from George and Mary. This is the guy who plays James I of England. Spitting image, the way they've got him.
Yeah,
and the young man next to him is George Villiers. And George, you can look up George. I think it's Villiers or Villiers, the way it's pronounced. He had a long hair and a beard and mustache, and so they've changed obvious things just with the visuals and things like that. But there's a good article if you want to read something about it, and I can maybe talk about this sometimes too. There's an article that was written called "Is Mary and George a True Story? The surprising history to know behind the royal drama, sex, witchcraft, murder, most foul in the court of James I." And it's all pretty much a true story. Yes, mainly it's a true story. It's adapted. It was adapted by playwright English D.C. Moore from Benjamin Woolley's 2017 nonfiction book, The King's Assassin. And Marion George and dramatizes the events that took place in the court of James I. And in this particular picture I show here, they're showing his son to the far left, Charles I, who, by the way, is the spitting image of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the original. Alec Guinness played him in a movie in the 60s, I think. Played Charles I. It looked exactly like him, and like Charles I. But with the rise of the parliamentarians and so on, Charles I ended up losing his head. But they play him as a rather weak character. He's the son who is always overlooked and never paid attention to, and I can't do this. How can I do this when I don't have this? And my father doesn't recognize that. He was that kind of a bit of a simpering character in this.
Yeah.
Who gained a little bit of strength under George Villiers. And of course, they show, I don't want to give away the plot, but it is said that James I got sick and over a course of a couple of years got worse, and that he eventually died. Well, they play up this as in like, what did you see in the movie Gladiator? That and it was also, by the way, in the X-rated Caligula. If any of you have ever seen that with Malcolm McDowell,
yeah,
and was in that, and I wonder if they knew it was going to be an X-rated film. I think all
they did. It was the movie was actually produced by
Bob Guccione.
Well, the backer, or whoever, the studio, if you will, I think it was Penthouse.
That's Bob Guccione.
Okay, yeah.
Owned Penthouse, yeah.
Right, so it was.
Or was it Hustler? I don't remember. Penthouse, I think.
Yeah, Hustler was the other guy.
That was the guy in the wheelchair. Yeah.
Right. He had a stroke and ended up in a wheelchair, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, like they knew what they were doing.
Actors in that, they had, of course, Peter O'Toole,
Mhm.
Lawrence of Arabia, and all those movies in the 60s that he made. And so he played Augustus Caesar in this movie.
Yeah.
Roddy McDowell. Malcolm McDowell played Caligula,
Yep.
who had Caligula's wife. I can't remember. She was a high priestess played by Helen Mirren.
Mhm.
And you had other characters, but yeah, it was.
Well, it's interesting to go back and look at interviews with Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's some things I was very uncomfortable with.
Yes.
With this filming, with this filming. And there were a lot of things that they filmed where he wasn't around. He wasn't involved.
Well, the main actors, the big name actors, weren't in any of the X-rated scenes.
Right.
It was like Malcolm McDowell, when he takes over the Senate as Caligula, and he tells everyone, he's selling off all the senators' wives as prostitutes.
Yeah.
You can sleep with a senator's wife, and if you didn't do it, you didn't comply, you were put to death. And so they've got this scene on this big decorative barge that he builds that's not even in the water, and this where orgies going on all around him, and he's walking through and announcing. But if you look closely, you never really see that he's part of this. And some of this movie breaks off into 15 and 20-minute long segments of absolute XXX rated orgy scenes in this set. And you think, okay, maybe he might have been there when they were filming some of that. I don't know. But the movie got pretty risque isn't even the word for it.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about that movie, that in that movie and in Gladiator, they show Caligula as murdering his father, or murdering the emperor. No, I'm sorry. Back that up. Malcolm McDowell murdering his father, Caligula murdering his Caesar, Augustus. And then in Gladiator, you have Commodus, played by
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix murdering Marcus Aurelius, smothering him to death. And so neither of those do we know actually happened. But it is assumed in history, it's probably not a stretch to say Caligula could have smothered Augustus to death, or that Commodus could have smothered Marcus Aurelius to death.
That was one of those things with Gladiator. you bring up the scene where Commodus kills Marcus Aurelius, and the only thing that I can, that will ever come to mind with that is, I am Maximus, Decimus Meridius,
general of the Northern Legion,
the Northern,
husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son, and I shall have my vengeance in this life or the next. What a great scene, though.
I mean, what was it? True heir to the Roman Empire, because Marcus Aurelius said, "Hey, you're going to be it."
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's something that is never, we don't know that in history. That was totally made up for that storyline. But Marcus Aurelius is going to, in this movie, by the way, played by Richard Harris, the original Dumbledore. He plays Marcus Aurelius, and he tells Maximus that he's going to name him the next emperor to carry on over his son.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Commodus murders his father before that any of that is played out, and he becomes the next emperor because nobody knows. And he tries to murder Maximus.
Right.
And so all of that is fictional creation.
Yeah.
It's what's the word I'm looking for? It is not supposed or presupposed. What's the word? It's a potential out of history that is speculative.
Well, and that's one of those things with historical films. You can write a fictional film about historical people and things like that. I think it's one of those things, though, where if you're going to do that, there has to be enough gaps in the knowledge base to allow for storytelling to unfold. I think one of the things that gets me is when we're doing a historic film, based on true events or centered, within the scope of, actual events that happened. And they go in and they tell a very, very fictional story. And it's all in things where it's like, well, I can walk to this building and I can see where this happened. And I can, we have the records of how this actually happened, like, from accounts from both sides and an investigation or whatever, like you can't go in and do that. Like, that's where it gets, you want to put filler in for conversation between like General Patton and, some buck sergeant that he, talks to in a field during a battle. Good on you, because there's not always going to be accounts of that.
But don't change the historical events that we know.
Right.
It's like when I watched the movie years ago, Kate, she played Elizabeth I, Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
What's
Shakespeare in Love? Was that
Kate? Whatever.
Yeah.
She wasn't in Shakespeare in Love.
No. Okay.
But I was thinking of Shakespeare in Love a second ago because that was a movie, total fiction.
Yes.
Other than Shakespeare writing Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
But it was a really good movie because it was a movie. It was made to be a romantic comedy set in the life of William Shakespeare.
Right. And there's enough gaps in the story with Shakespeare that you could
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, you can sit there and you can fill in. You can insert a story because, like, we don't know what he was doing on the third Tuesday of March.
I'm still thinking Romeo and Juliet. As he's writing it, he says, the theater owner, played by the guy who plays Captain Barbossa in the
Jeffrey Rush,
the Caribbean, Jeremy Rush. He's the theater owner. Well, what's the title? And he says it's something like Romeo and Ethel the Pirate's Daughter.
Yeah.
And he says, "Ooh, catchy." That was his working title in that movie.
Ethel the Pirate's
Daughter. Romeo, not Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Ethel the Pirate's Daughter. The Pirate King's daughter. Something like that.
I would like to see some sort of movie where they explore the whole no, this was actually written by Sir Francis Bacon, not William Shakespeare.
There was. Did you ever see the movie Anonymous?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God, that was a fantastic movie. I disagree with it.
Yeah.
But it's where they're saying the Earl of Oxford actually wrote all the works of Shakespeare.
Right.
And Shakespeare was they portray him even in that movie as he's like some dumb actor from, and I can act and you put me on the stage. And the Earl of Oxford pays him to become William Shakespeare. And because he couldn't write for the theater at his station.
Yes.
And so it was a really well done movie.
I'll have to look that one up. That actually sounds
Anonymous.
Good. Anonymous. That sounds good. I mean, like, I love those kinds of things, where it's like you have some conspiracy theory or contention.
By the way, Anonymous takes itself very seriously. It's a very serious movie.
Really?
About the works of Shakespeare not being written by Shakespeare.
Huh,
and the first I remember ever hearing of that controversy was some movie where the guy who played Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. Why am I so bad on names today?
Yeah, no, I understand completely.
Who played General Kang in the Star Trek, one of the Star Trek movies, the Klingon. Why is his name not coming to me? But I remember seeing him in some movie and not part of the plot at all. I think it was a movie like a Poirot movie or something like that. And he's an inspector in the background, an older inspector, and they're having this debate about Shakespeare's work. And he goes, Francis Bacon. French, Francis Bacon.
Like in a background conversation that you pick up on.
Yes.
Computer. Who played General Kang in Star Trek Six?
The
Undiscovered
voyage,
Country?
the undiscovered country.
Here's what I found. Kang is played by Michael Ansara in the Star Trek.
Michael Ansara?
That was the original Kang in the series.
Oh,
Here. Let me try mine. Hey Siri, who played General Kang in the Star Trek movie The Undiscovered Country?
Here's what I found.
Don't make me look it up. The cast. Here, let's look it up. The cast.
yeah. No, it's a big time name that you would like.
It is big time.
What's he doing playing Klingon?
Christopher Plummer. Jesus.
Christopher Plummer.
Why I couldn't think of his name, I don't know. Christopher Plummer.
And Plummer was coming up, and I'm like, no, that first name, I can't think. And like I'm sitting there running through it. Yeah, but Christopher Plummer, and you wouldn't think of an actor like that necessarily going into a role like that. And it's interesting. Sometimes you got to wonder about the motivations behind those big name actors that end up doing things like that. It's like, okay, is there like a secret, not oft talked about publicly love of science fiction and adventure stories, and they just want to because there's big name actors out there, and I can't think of any of the titles right now that are like.
Surprised me when Christopher Plummer played a Klingon general with the heavy makeup and all of that in Star Trek of all things. Well, he and Shatner were good friends for many years.
Yeah.
And, so
there's big time actors out there who have been basically, funding their kids' desires to try their hand at movie making.
Yes.
And, backing stuff. And like some of it's kind of like off the wall. Like you wouldn't have figured, and that's the thing is you're basing it totally off of all the typical roles that they play and what they go out for. And then you're like, wow, that's a genre bending decision.
Yeah.
It's, all right.
I always thought of Christopher Plummer, as Captain Von Trapp from The Sound of Music, but then he was always the sophisticated actor. He was like in that same category as like an Albert Finney or a maybe even a Peter O'Toole. And when you think about, by the way, Peter O'Toole's name, what a perfect porn name, huh? But he ends up in Caligula. Kevin Bacon? No, not the same.
Who played the Chancellor in Star Trek 6?
David Warner.
He's
been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Chancellor Gorkon.
Chancellor Gorkon.
David Warner, who just passed away not long ago.
Yeah.
But by the way, Professor Bauer, when I saw Bacon's book, New Atlantis, I read that my pseudo dyslexia went, Bacon's new book. He's been dead for 400 years. The cornerstone of the American idea and the Constitution. Yeah. So
Bacon's new book. What?
Bacon's got a new book out?
Not Francis Bacon, Professor. Come on, man.
But another
Get some more coffee on board.
movie on Shakespeare was Kenneth Branagh.
Playing, Henry V?
No, he played. He did all those Shakespearean movies.
Yeah,
but he played Shakespeare in a movie that wasn't very big. It came out a couple of years ago, and it had a title that was very unobsequious kind of title. God, I can't even think of it. Branagh as Shakespeare in All Is True. Was the name of it. All Is True.
That sounds familiar.
And he plays Shakespeare. Man, does he look the part? Mm-hmm. Well, of course, they do some prosthetics and all of that as well.
Yeah.
But he looked the part, and I think he played the part really well.
Well, Kenneth Branagh always does a really good job in whatever he does.
Amazing actor.
I hear he's kind of a dick.
I have heard some of that, which saddens me because I like him so much.
Right, exactly. You're like, I really want to hate this guy because he's a jerk. Like,
Right. And who was he was in one of the Harry Potter movies as some.
He was it a Defense Against the Dark Arts professor of some sort?
A guy
and he was
who's
a total
all
shill.
about selling his books and
Yeah,
a charlatan type.
wasn't he? Wasn't he in? There was another Shakespeare movie.
A bunch of them. Much Ado About Nothing.
Much Ado About Nothing, but didn't it have Keanu Reeves in it too?
Yes, Keanu Reeves.
And he played the heavy. He played the bad guy.
Yeah.
He always does. You know who really surprised me, but initially, but then once I thought about it and looked at it, was Lawrence Fishburne with Othello.
Yes.
He did an amazing job, and if you've seen him in any of the other things that he's done, you know he's got good chops as an actor.
Yes,
you never would have thought necessarily
right
Shakespeare, and it was kind of like, whoa, okay, this is really good, really good. I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to come close to, and maybe it's just because it became so iconic. And it has been so iconic for so long, both in this version and just throughout history. But Henry V, I don't think
we should call that Henry V.
Henry V.
Henry V movie about.
Like, have you ever watched the older Henry V movies?
Yes.
It comes to the St. Crispin Day speech right before the Battle of Agincourt.
We marry few.
Right. Yes. Nobody does it like Branagh.
No.
Nobody. Like the mastery that he has of Shakespearean, dialogue.
Absolutely.
And portraying those characters, like, you can't touch it. Like, it stands the test of time, and it's like, it's a dreadful art. If only we had but 10,000 of those men abed in England today.
Right.
What's he who wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland.
I love that scene, and it's so well played. By the way, there is Branagh as Shakespeare.
Oh my God!
In All Is True.
Dude,
and he's got a prosthetic nose that they put on him.
Yeah,
but man, did he play the part well?
That doesn't even look like Branagh.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, you can see it. You can see it in, like, kind of the mouth, but everything else, the hairline pulled back, the prosthetic nose.
Yes.
Wow. When you look at the paintings of things, and obviously paintings were always, let's make it look a little better,
Right.
But it's like, damn.
And he played the part. It's the end of his life is what the movie is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's him having come from, he was basically the Steven Spielberg of his day.
Right.
When you think about it, he was the big director, producer, stage theater owner, all of this. I don't know what kind of wealth he actually had compared to, like, a Spielberg.
Right.
But, he certainly had means.
Mm-hmm.
And here, I've got one other picture from that I'm going to show you from this. We're going to save it the right way. And but they play the end of his life. He's like coming home for the last time. He's like, I'm done. I'm retiring out of theater is kind of the idea here with this movie. And that's what he did. He went home. And his relationship with his wife, Anne Hathaway, was not good because he was gone all the time.
Right.
And his relationship with his children is played as not good. So this was kind of showing the real side of him and of his life and what it was like. And it's, I don't know how much time spans in there, a few months, maybe a year span in this movie. But this is just another shot of Branagh as Shakespeare.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
Branagh's killer. He's just, and I, because I'm trying to think of who was it that played Henry V in that one that they did in the 40s?
I can find out.
God, I mean,
Play.
it is a big time guy, it wasn't, it wasn't
Laurence Olivier.
Laurence Olivier.
It's
Thank
Laurence
you.
Olivier.
Yeah, for some reason my brain wanted to go to
Laurence Olivier.
yeah, a couple other guys, but yeah, Laurence Olivier. Like that whole scene, watching Laurence Olivier deliver the Crispin Day speech.
Oh, I'd play it if I wasn't going to get some kind of copyright strike.
Right, but it was the emotion was not there in the same kind of way.
Not in the same way as Branagh.
Branagh just like grabs a hold of it, and there's nothing in the Laurence Olivier movie. There was kind of this grandiose production of things. It was on a kind of wide angle, and
they did things so differently.
Right, and the thing, it's like, all our names will be, fresh on their lips, freshly remembered, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter. Like there's this soldierly leader energy that Branagh was able to bring to it, where he's psyching up the troops. And, it's more of a, with Olivier, it's
well, yeah, that's the way they, of course, did things back then. And the movies, the movies were played by most of these old stage actors. That's what it was in the movies.
Right,
they were reproducing stage characters, and they had stage acting.
Right,
as opposed to something that was real. So
that in the very last conversation that he has with Harold, the French Harold comes up, and says, talking about how will you basically sue for surrender, and then
yes,
Branagh has that whole thing of oh God, what was it? It's always so awesome because it starts off calm and collected, and then I just like the one word where he just starts bringing the energy and the volume up, and he's like, take it from these my joints.
That's it. Yes,
it's like the build is just
even
amazing.
Mel Gibson playing Hamlet back in the 80s did a fantastic job.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh my God, that was a fantastic version of Hamlet.
Okay.
And he was offered the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves movie, which came right after that, 1992. Or 91 when they filmed that, and he turned it down. He says, I'm not going to play two movies back to back wearing tights. But but
then we had to have Kevin Costner like fake his way through a mild British accent for like the first quarter of the movie, and then just not.
He came fresh from doing Dances with Wolves.
Yeah. Yep.
And he said within days of closing filming and production on Dances with Wolves, not even a week had passed, and he was already in England. And they filmed the very first scene where he's on the boat landing at the cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
And he says, I hadn't had an accent coach yet. I hadn't done this. And he said when he first got there, they presented the cast, or the crew presented him his costume. And for fitting, and they played a joke on him. They put in the Errol Flynn looking costume. It had the very Kelly green tights with the Kelly green pointed hat. And Costner said, I looked at that, or no, somebody was describing him, said he looked down at it and he looked at us under like a furrowed brow, like, you were got to fucking be kidding me. And
that's
they
hilarious.
got a good laugh out of it. But
Oh my god.
yeah, and so he didn't get much coaching
Mm-hmm.
for doing that part.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And then what, you have Bryan Adams doing the theme music?
Yeah, Bryan Adams. You can tell me it's not worth fighting for. You know, good song of the day. Early 90s.
I honestly think the absolute most classic, best telling of the Robin Hood story, out of all the actors, out of all the times it's been retold, nothing can ever match the energy, the power, the masterful telling and filming of Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's
masterful, yes. We're men in tights. Yes.
Tights.
Yes, masterful retelling. I actually liked the. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I liked the Russell Crowe Robin Hood,
which follows more in a
yes
historically accurate kind of way that it would be, from my
rising up against the king and so on, and then Kate Blanchett was in that too as Marion.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there are some that think that the Robin Hood legends merge with the William Wallace story. Have you ever heard that? Because
I think I have heard you make mention of it before.
Because they talk about how he is outlawed outlawed from the king, runs to the Greenwood band of followers, that his closest ally was somebody who was a Franciscan monk. That his there was a John Little type of character, John type of character. He was married to a woman named Marion, and all of these parallels that they brought up, and they said, and they were actually right around the same time period, the late 1200s.
Yeah,
and so it's very interesting. But they are finding that there are towns in north up in the Barnesdale area, which is north of. They say Robin Hood Sherwood Forest is the big. It was actually the forests of Barnesdale, and up in that area north is where most of the tales originated. And that there are little towns in Leeds and Pontefract, places like that up in the north in England that have old place names. Robin Hood Street, or Robin Hood Way dates back into the 1100s, and things like that. And so they're saying there were name places for this character.
Yeah.
Or was it the character drew his name from the name place? They don't know for sure. So, but
interesting.
It's a lot of good, interesting stuff on it. If you're interested in the Robin Hood legend, it was Tony Robinson who did all the archaeological shows in England, played Baldric in the Blackadder years ago. And he did a show on Robin Hood, and it was very well done.
There was an interesting show.
So
the Blackadder.
Blackadder was fantastic.
Well, in like the final episode of Blackadder was like a World War I episode.
Yes, they brought it all the way up into the World War
in the modern era, and it was interesting. You kind of look at it and you watch it, and it's like they're getting ready to go over the top of the trench.
Yes,
and like everything's deadpan. They're all playing it straight laced. There's no like there's none of the things where the one character who was always saying something about oh, that's a horrible plan. He's like, well, I guess it's the only plan we've got. It's like
the only plan we have.
and they face the end of the show. Like they face this going over the top of the trench. And facing the end of the show, and it's like done straight laced, which is such a departure.
Yeah, it was.
So
And
yeah.
I liked Blackadder. I loved their Elizabethan era Blackadder episodes. Those were some of the best. And folks, if you don't know Blackadder, you got to look it up.
Yeah.
Blackadder.
It's,
And by the way,
Mr.
speaking
Bean,
of-
Rowan Atkinson.
yes, Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
Play, and it was Tony Robinson played his village idiot servant in the early episodes as Baldric. And
Mhm.
Baldric's, I have a cunning plan, master.
Well, and you know who else was in it?
Who?
Hugh Laurie.
Yes, Hugh Laurie, who played House.
House,
If you ever saw
yeah.
that series. Oh, I loved his character. What? You know, didn't he play the prince? And didn't he play? Was he the Scarlet Pimpernel? No, he didn't play the Pimpernel. He played the prince still.
Yeah.
And
Dude. Just all those people, you're like,
you know,
you see them now in their modern roles, and then you see them there with something like Blackadder, and you're like, it's like, you know, an incredibly serious actor being on, you know, Monty Python. You're like, what?
Exactly. And yeah, he played it very Monty Python. Now that you mentioned that, so I got to show you one other picture here. There is a place. Do you remember Elizabeth I? She had a lover for a very long time. Robert. This is my thing with names today. Is it my brain? Easy name to remember. He owned a Kenilworth Castle. God damn, I can't think of it. He was her lover, and she never married him, of course. But you can go to Kenilworth Castle, which is Shakespeare country. It's in Stratford upon Avon districts. And we went to this castle, some buddies of mine and I, when we were over there. And there's a little place. You go outside what would have been like the back door of the castle. And there was a little hill there that overlooked a man-made lake. And this man-made lake was, you know, an extension from the moat. And so on this, there was a little mound there outside the back door. And Henry V, Henry V, used to take his whole court out there, and they would hold court out on this little mound with all kinds of rugs thrown down and tables and food and so on. And that's where they would do things because he liked the outdoors. Henry V. Well, this picture right here was taken on Henry's mound outside of Kenilworth Castle.
Oh, cool.
And this was right where Henry would have a big chair brought out there on carpets, and they would sit right on this hillside. And my buddy's wife went down the hill a little bit to take this picture of us, and we're all surveying the lake and the land. Oh, yes, these are my lands here that go with the castle. So that's Kenilworth Castle.
Huge tracts of land.
Robert Dudley, huge tracts of land. Robert Dudley was the lover to to Queen Elizabeth. And no, you don't. I want to buy an argument. No, you don't, says Rapid Dog. Now for something completely different. Yes. And yes, Scott Allen, there was a Robin Hood sequence in Time Bandits. I thought, Time Bandits, the best scene was the Pirates of the Wall Street or whatever it was. The financial, God, was that a fantastic scene?
That really was.
I loved the file cabinets where the cannons fired out the windows. So I can't remember what it was called. You have to look it up, folks.
They had the fan blades.
Wait, that wasn't Time Bandits. That was Meaning of Life. Yes. So anyway, but there is hailing to Henry V, Henry V. That's where he would sit right there on that spot. And so we had to sit down. There's my two buddies. That's the trip we took. We went for 2 weeks. This is 2005. This picture was taken. So almost 20 years ago, 19 years ago, we took a little trip and we rented a car and we just castle hopped and pub hopped for 2 weeks in England. And that's one of the places we had to stop was Kenilworth. And Shakespeare's home, Anne Hathaway Cottage, the house where he grew up, where his father was a glove maker. That house, we visited all those the same day. So it was all right there. But what a great place. So there we are 20 years ago, sitting on Henry's Mound.
Yeah.
So, oh, what a fun romp this has been, going through movie to movie and seeing how they kind of segue into other things and other movies. So
it's always fun when you also find stuff where they do they do nods to other things. Like that's always, especially if they slip it in there very naturally. So it's like if you don't know to look for it, you might miss it. If you don't have familiarity with a director or a writer's other movies or previous things, that you would miss it. And it's always fun to see those little.
There was a bunch of them in Shakespeare in Love, but there was one little scene which was a nod to a phrase. The show must go on.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this scene where there's conflict, and Fenneman, the owner of the theater, played by Jeffrey Rush, was like, he's trying to explain something, and Shakespeare, played by Joseph Fiennes, Fenneman is saying, well, the show must, and Shakespeare goes, go on. The show must go on.
Go on.
So, little nods like that, comic nods, and
right.
But there are historical things that you're given nods to, and all kinds of things like that. So,
well, and I think that speaks to writing too. When you have writers who are conscious enough about the source material,
yes,
and go that extra little bit to make the world more believable, because you have people having sidebar conversations about various topics of the day.
Yes,
big events that have gone on that are within a certain time frame of the main event. That the film or the show is centering around. Like, I think that speaks to writing.
Yes, and it's all about writing. Getting back to this article that kicked us all off, I was in the middle of talking about the Little Mermaid remake, the live action one,
right?
And the song "Kiss the Girl," which emphasized the importance of consent rather than "go take the kiss."
Mm-hmm.
The film's main problem was that it was boring and uninspired. That's writing. And although Disney's hailed in the media for its inspirational choice of casting, Little Mermaid performed worse than expected. It hit screens in 2023, barely breaking even. No amount of diversity hype can make up for a dull film.
It's always sad when what could be a really great film falls flat because of wooden writing.
Right.
It's
Snow White. Is the next up for this woke reboot. I think they've canceled that since this article was written. It's slated for release next year, and already its prospects aren't looking good. Ever since her casting was announced in 2023, star Rachel Zegler has used every opportunity to trash the source material, the original story, fairy tale, as sexist and outdated. And she's called the film's love story weird and accused Prince Charming of having literally stalked Snow White. And Zegler claims that this new updated version will focus less on romance and true love and more on women being in roles of power. Now, guess what? That movie was trashed since this was written. Disney pulled it. They didn't even make it. They made it. They pulled it.
Yeah, that's one of those things with like looking at, Snow White, right? It's like, okay, I understand that there is a portrayed lack of consent. and given those things. But
Yeah.
like, you're also looking at one of those things where it's like, legend has it that there is this person out there in the
Right.
woods, in a castle, in whatever, that, you know,
Yeah.
has been put under a spell, and the only way to break that spell is, you know,
A
a
love
kiss
screw
from
kiss or
love
something.
screw kiss. And, you know, so there's a when you have legends like that, it's kind of difficult to start arguing
Yeah.
or maybe not difficult, right? Because clearly it's very easy. Somebody could sit there and say, well, he
Sure.
just went up there and kissed her. And, but it's
Without consent.
without consent, right? Which obviously, yes, those things should never happen, right? But it's like, once you start going into legends and myths and all of that stuff, things take on a very different bent.
Yes.
You know, you can't.
It's fantasy.
It's fantasy, and it's one of those things where you have, you know, you have a guy who is, you know, I'm going to find this person. This person is, you know, my destiny, whatever. I'm going to slay the
Right,
beasts. I'm
right.
going to face the challenges to win the right of being able to, you know, to do this thing. And I'm doing it for true love. And I'm like, there's, yes, if you take it down to its, you know, like the very, very focused, you know, individual pieces, and you just snip out where he walks in there and there she is and he kisses her while she's unconscious. Yes, that in of itself, taken by itself, is one of those unconsensual things. But if you look at the whole thing, you know, that kind of a legend, that kind of a story, or fairy tale, there is a whole thing of winning the privilege of being able to do this. So it does speak to earning and putting in the effort and putting in the dedication and commitment and all of that. And even doing it, you know, there's a certain level of even honor romance, however you want to put it. I can't think of my lexicon is failing me this morning, with regular words, as yours is with names. But there's a certain amount of right there, and I can't.
Je ne sais quoi. I don't know what.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But it's you know, there's a certain honorable kind of thing there in having faith and believing in something that you may not necessarily know will come to fruition. You know, of attaining that goal. You may not reach this, but you're going to strive for it anyway, and for all the right reasons. There's a lengthy workaround, wordy workaround to get to you know what I was trying to say. But there's certain, you know, example that gets set with doing that sort of thing. You know, there's an honor and a dignity and a kind of feel to that kind of thing.
Yes. By the way, with the I just noticed this too while you were talking, with the Snow White film that's been pulled, been canned. There was a lot of criticism, not only from Rachel Zegler, who played Snow White and was just flapping her mouth about the original, and I mean, that really is what turned people off. And there was more criticism that they weren't using real dwarves to play the seven dwarves. So, like, you know, what's his name playing Gimli in Lord of the Rings? Who was he? Was Sulla in the Indiana Jones movies? Steyer, not Steyers. A name like that.
Computer, who played Sulla in Indiana Jones?
In the Indiana Jones movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, the character of Salah was played by John Rhys Davies.
John Rhys Davies.
In several scenes throughout the movie, providing companionship and assistance to Indiana Jones.
Thanks, computer. A British star is
The breaking soul. Yeah. Be careful, my friend. Us very good day.
very dangerous.
You go first.
Bad dates.
So yes, bad dates. So yes, not a lot of comments going on. I think we're rounding up. Oh, and it's 11 o'clock. It's 11:01 already. So I think we're going to round this up. There's so much more to say about this. I might bring this into tomorrow night's conversation since it's a holiday weekend. I hope everybody, and you included, are going to have a good Memorial Day. We'll still do a show tomorrow night. And to round off everybody's holiday weekend, maybe we'll talk about some stuff like this some more tomorrow night because it's kind of fun.
It is. It's always fun.
It is. So you have a good day. You have a good holiday tomorrow.
Same to you. Same to you.
And I will talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, brother. Everybody else, thanks for being here for the show today. Appreciate your participation in the chat room, your being here. I hope you enjoyed today. Let's do it again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern, and, of course, all the other time zones. You can figure it out. So thanks for being here. We're going to get out of here for now, and we'll see you tomorrow night. So live long and prosper. Have a happy Memorial Day.